Hi, my name is Flo, and I just finished this book, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and all of these in 30 days. I know, it's pretty crazy, right?
Wow, I can't wait to finish this book and to read more books. 10 books almost. The stories were completely absurd. I don't want to pretend like this challenge is super easy.
So why am I doing this? As a child, I loved to immerse myself in different universes, befriend all the characters I encountered, and learn about the complexities and beauty of our world. I could spend hours and hours reading, and I read so much. I loved it. But sadly, I don't really read anymore. Since high school and uni, I've only read a handful of books, and in the past 5 years, films, TV shows, and YouTube videos replaced them. I set myself the goal to read 20 books in 2020. I thought it'd be challenging, but doable. And then I watched this documentary on bookstores, and it was a huge wake-up call.
I've been reading like 2 books a year for the last couple of years. If I keep reading at this pace, I'm likely to die before having read 150 books. If I don't make a change today, I'm never gonna read all those books that I've put on my reading list. Forget that. I'm gonna read them in a month instead.
I'm not a bookworm anymore, and I don't think I read particularly fast, but I think with this challenge, I can make it happen.
You don't read that often anymore.
Well, I'm gonna change that. Alright, let's go. I'm gonna leave the timestamps of this video in the description below, by the way. So here are the rules of the challenge. They need to be 20 books that I haven't read yet, at least 200 pages long. I can't read any sequels if the book is part of a series, and I will explore a variety of genres, from autobiography to fiction, fantasy, philosophy, etc. Also, disclaimer, it's the start of my 2nd month in lockdown, so this is why I have a bit of extra time on my hands, and therefore it is the perfect time to be doing this. Today I'm gonna start reading Sapiens. I've had this book for many years. I think I started reading it 2 or 3 years ago, but I never finished. I don't even know where I was in the book. There's so many people that recommended this to me.
Okay, so day 1, day 2 go by, and I read for 1 to 2 hours in the morning until my mind saturated and started to wander. I then read for an hour or 2 after lunch and did the same before bed. This worked really well for the first couple days, so I kept this routine up, and really surprisingly, I managed to read a lot.
Okay, I just finished this book. I can't believe it. The last book I read was The Laws of Human Nature, and it took me a month. And I just read this in 2 days. It's incredible.
Book number 2 is Periled Endhouse by Agatha Christie, the Queen of Crime. I haven't actually read any of her books, which is unfortunate, I know. I'm curious to see if I'm gonna like this one because I can't remember when I last read fiction. I know that I reread some of the Harry Potters last year, but I don't know if that counts. So yeah, I'm excited, and yeah, let's go. As the days went by, I finished Periled Endhouse. Alright, so book number 2 is finished. It was fun. I liked it. And started Little Women, which had recently been turned into a film.
I haven't seen it, and I haven't read the book either.
I made quite a lot of progress and was so happy because I found something that I've been longing for such a long time.
So I've been reading non-stop. This is my 4th book, Star of the North. My 4th book, oh my gosh. Catherine, if you're watching this, I'm reading it and I'm loving it. And I don't know, I just really miss reading, and I miss the like ease that I had as a kid to just pick up a book and completely immerse myself in the story and in the world that was created by the author. And I think I'm starting to find that again, and I'm so happy because this is why I love reading. It's like watching a movie but tenfold, because you have access to so many details and you have access to the thoughts of like all the characters, and it's just, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I took this challenge, and I can't wait to finish this book and to read more books. Good morning. I was up all night reading this, and I just finished it this morning. Just wow. I'm gonna start this book now. It's called Le Passe-Muraille.
So I tried reading in French again because the last time was probably in high school, so like over 4 years ago, and I did not like this book.
I just finished book number 5 and I hated it. The stories were completely absurd, and maybe it was also because I was tired from reading so much over the last 6 days. If I wasn't doing this challenge, I would have probably stopped reading this and picked up another one, but I finished it. Book number 6 though is The Hobbit, and I think I'm gonna like this one a lot more. Let us begin.
So yeah, sometimes you read a book and you love it, and sometimes you don't, and that's okay. And here you can see my sister who just started reading Harry Potter. Alright, I'm almost done with The Hobbit. I have a tiny bit left, so I'm gonna read a bit before bed, and if I don't finish it, I'll just finish it tomorrow morning. But I just wanted to say it's Wednesday today, so it's already been a week since I started this challenge, and I'm almost done with my 6th book in like a week. It's incredible. I'm so proud of myself, and if you told me I'd be doing this a couple months ago, I would not have believed you. So it just goes to show that you can achieve anything you want. If you set yourself a goal, you can do it, because I'm doing it right now. Now, my 7th book was 7 Years in Tibet, and it was different to the ones that I'd read so far because it was a biography, but also a really interesting account and description of the Tibetan people in the 1940s, which I knew nothing about before, but it was so fascinating.
This Heinrich is incredible. He's the ultimate adventurer, explorer, and the stories that he tells are insane. I can't believe that it actually happened in real life. And second of all, his descriptions are phenomenal. I really want to go visit Tibet now and that part of the Himalayas because it sounds so beautiful. The way he describes it, it's just wow.
Next up was The Girl on the Train, and honestly, I didn't like it.
I don't really know how to feel about this one. It was quite disturbing. I think this was the point where I realized that reading should be fun above anything else. And if you really like a book, it becomes so much easier and you read a lot faster too.
When I was at school, reading wasn't always fun. We would always tear the books apart, trying to find hidden meanings in the words, over-analyzing each character, and maybe that's a reason why a lot of us dreaded it. Even in university, because I had to do so much reading for class, it was exhausting, and I didn't want to read more as a hobby. There are so many books in the world, and if you're anything like me, having so much choice can be a bit overwhelming. So how do you find books that you'll enjoy? I picked books that were already around the house and that I thought I might like. One thing that I've learned from this challenge is to start with something easy to read and that makes you want to turn the page.
So if you're not enjoying a book, you don't have to finish it. For some reason, I used to think that it was disrespectful to the author if I didn't read every single word and page, but now I'm realizing that's just ridiculous, and that mindset was really hindering my reading. Also, you don't have to read the classics and the most acclaimed books. Once you have the habit, you can turn to those if you like. Now, if you don't know where to start, I'd say reread a book that you used to love before just to get back into reading, and then think of your favorite TV shows and films because you already know you like the story. There were probably books beforehand and they're usually better than the films. Also, read with friends. Oftentimes I read a book and all I want to do is talk to someone about it who's read it or is reading it. And I also have two friends who recently started reading together and they love it.
Even now, like, we make jokes about The Stand of Misery like all the time because we just know it like inside out. Honestly, that's gonna be a book that I'm gonna remember forever.
Rather than just sitting there scrolling on our phones or doing something else mindless like watching a TV series together. It was just a really great bonding experience as well as like the good experience we were getting out of reading it.
So book number 9 is The Tattooist of Auschwitz. I haven't read this one before. I've heard a lot of good things about it though. My mom read it, my sister read it. It's the next day and I finished this book earlier today. I forgot to update or even film anything. I moved on to the next one, but I just wanted to mention quickly that this book is amazing. It's incredibly moving. It's just a beautiful story, so I highly recommend it. It is day 15, which means I'm halfway through my challenge. I have read all of these books in the past 14 days and I'm reading this one right now. So 10 books almost. I don't think I've read this many books in the last 3 years.
Ridiculous!
So it's insane. Wait a minute, but how did I actually do it? Like, how did I have the time? Because time is one of the most frequent obstacles to reading, and that was always my excuse. I don't have time to read.
I don't have time to read right now.
And I know that actions express priorities and that no one is too busy and that I have to make time, but it's easier said than done. The second obstacle to reading more, which is there even if you do have time, is distractions. How can you focus on a task that demands your full attention when you're so easily and constantly distracted by this, your phone? There is so much stuff out there competing for our attention, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Netflix, and that does not help when you want to focus on reading. And that is exactly what I told my friend Ollie. We were discussing this because he's also been reading a lot in the last couple months. When you're watching a movie or a TV show or a documentary or even YouTube, you can get distracted so easily by the comments, by the things that are on the side. You can already click like what your next video is going to be. You can skip ahead, whereas on like when you're reading a book, you have to focus and you have to read like page by page, otherwise you miss out on a lot. Now, when I set out to read 20 books in a month, I knew that it would take up a lot of my time, and it has so far. I've been reading 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours a day, and I had to find that time somewhere, and that is why I decided to switch off the internet off my phone and my laptop for the entire first week of this challenge. And it was such an eye-opener because these two problems of I don't have the time and I'm constantly distracted by my phone just weren't there anymore. I basically swapped out any type of entertainment with reading, and that is how I managed to read this many books in that first week. And when I came back to the internet, it was quite overwhelming, but also because I managed to get into a really good routine, I was able to maintain that for the second week. So in order to prioritize reading and minimize distractions, what you need is substitution. Instead of adding to your already growing to-do list, you need to substitute a form of entertainment with another. It is not a daily increase, but a daily decrease. What about you? Look at your screen time. How much of your activity could you swap out with reading? Just spending 1 hour less on the internet means that you could read like 60 pages. And if you do that every single day for 1 week, you could read 2 200-page books. If you put it that way, my choice is so obvious.
If you honestly added up all of the time that you were on your phone, all the time you just sat watching the TV, like not even paying attention to it, and even half that and spent half the time reading, you would have a lot of time to read. You would read a book a week or something, because honestly, we send our minds to sleep just scrolling on Instagram, so many times a day, like a ridiculous amount of times.
2 simple things you can do are turning off your phone or putting it on airplane mode just while you're reading so that you can avoid the distraction. Just remember that time is the one thing you can never get back, and how you want to spend it is completely up to you. I finished Throne of Glass yesterday. The book I've started now, it was actually a birthday gift. It's called Journeys in the Wild. It's by Gavin Thurston, and he was actually one of the cameramen behind Blue Planet 2 and Planet Earth 2, and he worked with David Attenborough for many years. So it's kind of like a behind the scenes. It's just so fascinating. I love it. Okay, so right about here is when I learned a really important lesson about habits, because I know it might seem like everything's going so smoothly so far, but around week 3 I really slowed down with my reading, and I also didn't really film much. Okay, it has been a while since my last update. The last week has been really difficult reading wise. I've only managed to read 2 books. I didn't know if I wanted to include this in the video, but it is part of the journey. The reason why is because I lost the motivation to read, and I lost the momentum that I had the first 2 weeks, and I don't know, I was just tired. I just didn't feel like reading, and I want to share this because I think it's normal, and I don't want to pretend like this challenge is super easy and, you know, I'm just reading book after book after book and it's just a breeze. It's not. It's been really difficult, and some days I just don't want to read. Some days I've read like half an hour, and I've also had a lot of stuff to do, and it's not easy to make the time to read for hours and hours at end.
Just like any habit you want to implement, it is not going to be easy at first. You need to be consistent and strict with yourself, especially in the beginning. It is not enough to do it 5 days straight and forget about it for months. You have to do it every single day until it sticks. It's discipline, which is a skill I'm going to need for the rest of my life, and so I force myself to read every single day, even if sometimes it was just 30 minutes.
I guess I need to be not that harsh on myself, but I am determined to complete this challenge though, and I will. Even if that means I'm gonna have to read 2 books a day for a couple days this week. One thing that really helped me was a change of mindset. Looking at the challenge at a large scale was scary. I thought 30 days is a lot. That's gonna be a lot of hours of reading. No. Take it day by day, whether it's 1 page, 1 chapter, or 10 minutes. If you do a little bit every single day, by the end of a month, you'll have accomplished a great deal. I really want to enjoy each book and try and get as much as possible out of it, because every book has so much to offer in its own way. So yeah, sometimes it does take a couple more days. I mean, the last book I was reading is Justice, and this is like a political philosophy book. So it is really heavy, and it makes you think a lot, and I took a lot of notes as well. It's not the kind of book that you can read for 4 hours straight. It's just not. This is my next book.
As I started my last week, I had to catch up and increase my daily reading time. I read Pride and Prejudice, which I was actually quite disappointed with, and then I read 2 books that I bought when I was like 15 or 16 called The Pigman and Will Grayson, and I hated them. I do not recommend them. Then I read Last Chance to Sea, which was such an eye-opener. It was about expeditions in search of endangered species around the world over 30 years ago, and I learned so much from it. Book number 18 was Kipling's Jungle Books.
This actually has number 1 and 2 in here, but the first book is actually under 200 pages, so I decided to read both and count them as 1 book. I'm almost done with the challenge. Oh my gosh. Crazy. And then I read A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. It's this book, by the way, and this was so fascinating because I hadn't done any science since high school, like over 4 years ago, so it was so cool to learn about space and black holes and wormholes again. And this made me really think about knowledge, because books are not just a form of entertainment, they're also a really powerful tool. I mean, if you think about it, throughout history we've been dependent on our muscle power to survive, but nowadays it's with your mind, your knowledge, your skills that you navigate life. And personally, I've always loved learning, and I'm curious about so many things. You can learn so much with books, and not just factual stuff like I did with Sapiens. This book has so much information and my brain is still trying to process it. I feel like I've just done an entire semester of anthropology. But you can also learn so much indirectly. With fiction, for example, you get to delve into different worlds and new situations, and by following the thoughts of really complex and unpredictable characters, you get to learn so much about human behavior and even yourself, because authors are really observant people and they base their characters off of their own experiences. Also, the level of detail in books is insane, and you really get to exercise your imagination. In 7 Years of Tibet, for example, when Heinrich spoke about his adventures, even though he was the one telling the stories, it was my mind, my imagination that was creating the world and everything in it. And that was all based on my own experiences and memories. Like, for example, what does freezing cold feel like to me? What do Tibetan bells sound like? I'm able to imagine that by comparing his descriptions to my experiences and memories. And this means that everyone's gonna have a completely different reading experience. I think when you watch a movie, all that is gone because because you're looking at one perspective and how the director imagined that world. And while it could be amazing, it's also a bit restrictive because there's only so much you can show in like 2 hours. You see, reading a book takes time. If you're an average reader of like 2 minutes per page, then you'll read the average book in like 10 hours. You probably won't read for 10 hours straight, but over many days or weeks. And so you give yourself a lot of time to take in the information and to think about it, even subconsciously. So a book will be engraved in your memory in a completely different way than a film would. And depending on your personality, you're going to relate more to a certain character rather than another and get inspired by their actions and values. It's a very unique experience. With some of the books, I feel like simply reading it wasn't enough to take the most out of it. So I took notes on a piece of paper that I folded up and I used as a bookmark, and that really helped me engage with the information and ultimately remember the book better. I wrote down interesting facts, quotes, and noteworthy pages, and at the end I typed them all up on my computer so that I can easily find them again. Book number 20 is Heidi. I love it. It's just like the cartoons. I used to love the cartoons when I was a kid, and it's just bringing so many memories back. What an amazing book to end this challenge with. I just finished my 20th book. Why are we limiting ourselves? We're capable of so much more. All we need to do is believe in ourselves. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. 20 books. 20. I wanted to read 20 books this year and I just read them in a month. Okay, so here are the 20 books that I've read.
Just then.
Okay. I will not be reviewing them in this video because otherwise it will take ages. But what I will do is list them in the description in order of preference and with a star review so you can see which ones I liked and which ones I didn't like. And if you want more detailed reviews, you can go to my Goodreads. If you don't have Goodreads, it's basically a website where you can log, review, rate books. You can make lists, you can see what your friends are reading. It's amazing. Okay, so I've read 20 books. That's a total of 6,408 pages in 107 hours and 50 minutes. And that is 4 days, 11 hours and 50 minutes. Wow. That's a daily average of 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's not that much, honestly, considering how much time I spend on my phone. Now that I've read those 20 books, it makes so much sense. Why was I not doing this before? We procrastinate things so much, and most often they are things that we know are good for us. Honestly, if you're like me and you used to read a lot when you were younger and don't anymore, I really hope my story gives you that little initial push to get you started. If you don't really like reading, then why are you watching this? But also, please just give it a go, because it is a hobby that literally anyone can do. Like, picking up the guitar isn't an option for everyone, because you need a guitar, but reading is super accessible. And if you really don't like reading the traditional way or you have difficulties, you can always listen to audiobooks. Moving forward, I'm probably gonna aim to read 1 to 2 books a week because I know I can do it now, and I'm gonna keep reading lots of different genres because I love both fiction and non-fiction, and there's so many books. I also want to read in different languages, so if you have any recommendations for books in English, German, French, or even Spanish, please leave them below. I want to finish this off by saying that this is one of my proudest achievements so far in 2020. Not that much happened this year, but I was able to fall in love with reading again and create a habit for life. I was reminded of just how much I love reading and telling stories, and I guess this video is how I'm telling mine for now. And who knows, maybe one day I'll publish my own book. But until then, let's keep reading and learning and sharing it. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing if you want, and please leave me any book recommendations in the comments below because I will definitely be checking them out. And yeah, goodbye. Bye.